This is Dr. Sam Sugar, and we are doing a victim video. We are recording this on December 30th, and we are recording Ian Ornstein. Welcome to the video, Ian. You are where in the country?
Tucson, Arizona.
And the guardianship that you were involved in is a guardianship of your father-in-law?
Yes.
Briefly, tell us when this whole saga began for you.
About 2.5 years ago. The whole saga created basically when my father-in-law's wife died.
Uh-huh. And what happened then?
My sister-in-law took the guardianship and also took the conservatorship, and my father-in-law is not dead.
He's still living.
He's still living, and he's in basically a jail of a care home.
Are you allowed to visit him?
I am not.
Why?
They have fabricated so many different things on me, including fabricating that I was disruptive and I was never at his second care home. They've been moving him, basically, they've moved him now 3 times after they basically took him out of his home under duress, and they got 2 doctors to say that he's incompetent, and they've been drugging him on psycho drugs, and I just hear hearsay because my wife's able to see him only twice a week with a court-approved supervisor. I lost
you. Do you have to pay to see him?
I don't pay. My wife does. Almost about, we calculate it looks like about $5,000 a month in all their fees and stuff that they're charging back to the trust and to my wife.
And in this guardianship, which you're describing, were there adequate advance directives in place before the guardianship?
Fully. There was a power of attorney on the medical side, a mental power of attorney, and a very sophisticatedly put together trust.
And what happened to all those plans?
Completely non-going by the directives of the plans.
Is there an explanation as to why that happened? Did the judge give you a reason?
They don't give any reasons, no.
Do you feel as though those advance directives should have been followed?
Absolutely, because what's the sense of going in, putting together a trust, a power of attorney, all the directives that these attorneys are charging thousands to millions of dollars to put together? What's the sense of having any of those directives if the court and the attorneys do not follow them?
And as a result of not following the advance directives, you say your father-in-law is still living. Has his estate been plundered?
Oh, absolutely. They took his house, sold it for half the value, and sold it in 1 hour and got it closed. And even when we went to the court with an injunction, the judge just overrules the injunction. And they went ahead and liquidated the house. He had another property in Hawaii that was sold for half its value and just liquidated. And we have absolutely no accounting from the court, no accounting from anybody And there's even a trust protector involved. And the trust protector, when we went and sued them, they construed it and they dismissed the case against the trust protector.
Who, the guardian that was appointed for your father-in-law, was that a professional guardian?
At first, it was my sister-in-law. And then in the actual power of attorney, it states that if you do not want to or willing or able to perform the duties, that my wife would be the second one in command. And they just overruled that and said to her, and we finally had an attorney after getting 24 turn downs from attorneys. We finally found one that came in, and she basically extorted my wife and said, if you ever want to see your father again, you better give him the rights to hire this law firm as the guardian. And I think that they also took conservator too now.
So how would you describe this process? Why is all this happening, do you think? And was there, by the way, was there family dysfunction involved in here? Did you have disputes with any other family members?
We had no disputes at all with the family members until the passing of my mother-in-law.
And what happened then?
That's when all this started.
Do you think it started as a result of one person's greed to get what they thought was coming to them early?
You either have greed or you have physical wanting power of the situation. It's very, very orchestrated power. And the financial area is another area, because when you have a high net wealth individual, it's probably where the greed comes in and the control.
And how much money was at stake here?
Probably at the beginning, it was probably around a $5 million estate.
And what do you think is left?
Have no idea anymore, because we have no counting. And also, I can't even get in to see my father-in-law for the last 2.5 years. And we used to go to dinner and go out with him on at least a weekly basis. We were very close.
Now, you say that you're not allowed to see him. Is there a court order keeping you from seeing him?
No court order, implied order. And because I have a high security clearance, I didn't want to get arrested, because they said that they would arrest me if I showed up to see him for trespassing. And I couldn't take that chance because of my livelihood of my high security clearance.
You understand that that is an absolutely routine tactic that abusive guardians use to avoid being discovered, and for you to not be able to know that the abuse is occurring within these lockdown facilities. That's really awful. And it is also against a lot of statutes and laws. But that aside, how is your wife in all of this?
My wife is having a lot of problems with it. She is just going along. My wife is a non-controversial person, very loving, very happy person, just adores her dad. Her dad is incredible. He's a World War II veteran. I think what's keeping him alive today is all his military and veteran training, because he understands that he's in a lockdown situation. They are drugging him. He doesn't like the drugs, but they're putting it in his food if he wants to eat. So he takes the food and eats the drugs.
So let me ask you something. At the outset of all this, in your opinion, was your father-in-law incapacitated?
No, he
Why?
might have had old age issues, but he wasn't completely incapacitated. And let me tell you why. One of the reasons that they don't like me was at the first care home, I was getting him out of his wheelchair and actually walking, and they didn't like it. And when they couldn't get him drugged, so he could not talk or speak, they didn't like me at all because I was getting him back on his feet and getting him turned around. So the whole key was we have to fabricate these false statements. Like one of the false statements that they fabricated was, I was helping people escape out of the care home. Well, first of all, how could I help people escape out of the care home when, I'm just dealing with my father-in-law here? So they fabricated that kind of a story to go in and get me so I could not see my father-in-law anymore.
Right. And this is also an absolutely typical pattern of vilification of anyone who stands in the way of the guardianship steamroller. They will call you every name in the book. It's not uncommon for them to claim that someone who stands in the way, as you were trying to, is an alcoholic or a drug addict or an axe murderer or anything you can think of. And the reason why is because lawyers can lie in court. They are never under oath. And this tactic of spreading the seeds of suspicion about innocent people is universal. Anybody who stands up against the guardianship is characterized as the lowest scum on the earth, like you're trying to kill your father-in-law. You want to interfere with his care, or he gets upset when you come. So you're not alone, and you're certainly not alone in all of this, as we're learning in these videos. What would you say to the person who may be seeing this video who doesn't know anything about guardianship, but they have an older person in their family that they care for? What would you tell them?
First of all, I think one of the most important things is if you get a power of attorney, make sure it's signed and notarized by 3 separate notaries. Because what we're finding is if you have 3 separate notaries on a document and you bring it to the judge cannot judge on that document. Because one of the things they say, well, he wasn't in the right mind at the time he did it. He wasn't this, or he was coerced on doing something. And this is a very important thing, that if there's 3 independent notaries, hey, judge, hey, lawyer, anybody, there's no question this is what my facts are, and this is what I want my estate to be dealt with, and this is what I want.
So the role of the notary is becoming more and more important, and we're learning that all across the country. What would you say to a family that's having some issues with one another, and knowing what you know about how easy it is to conscript someone into a guardianship?
Well, the problem is we don't have any law enforcement because, we thought we had law enforcement that would protect us. We have all these agencies with all the alphabet soup letters and everything. And when it comes to it, they don't want to get involved with anything. And so the most important thing we can do is basically work together and get the knowledge together, because this legal team, they're out there training lawyers at fancy resorts, and they're training them to really go after the money. And there's a lot of money involved because you're not able to move the generation wealth to where you want it to be. And if you get yourself a team of lawyers, they think they can just get away with doing anything above the law, above the Constitution, and also the statutes. They don't think they mean anything. They only mean something for the lay people, but they don't mean anything for the common people. And the judicial system is broke.
And just to get a plug in again, a lot of this information is in this book. And for those of you who are watching this video and you don't have enough knowledge about guardianships, get this book. It's cheap, it's easy to get on Amazon, and it will help you topple the learning curve about all of the issues that Ian has been talking about tonight. Any final words, Ian, before we wrap this up?
We all have to band together as numbers, and we have to get with the federal law enforcement, judicial system, and we also have to demand jury trials if it gets into the probate court. Those are the only keys that we can see that could work. The other thing is never be by yourself, or if you are by yourself, make sure you have a recorder and make sure that you record everything, because they lie, they steal, they cheat, and they lie to the court, and the court lets them lie when you have a lawyer.
Ian, those are very powerful words. I want to thank you for talking to us, and we'll look forward to at least possibly hearing some good news in the future. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so I just